Hi, everyone. Christy and I chose the Science Museum Group's Psychology, Psychiatry, and Anthropometry collection. We thought it was very unusual and interesting, and we hope you find it interesting too.
This collection was brought together by the Science Museum Group in the United Kingdom, and they describe it as a way to explore objects revealing the many ways medical professionals have thought about and treated mental illness, as well as attempts to measure and categorize people, whether physically or mentally. So essentially, it is a collection of how the human mind has been viewed through history. The collection contains artifacts from various mental hospitals in the United Kingdom. Some of the artifacts are amusing, some of them can be quite triggering, and some of the artifacts demonstrate the earliest thoughts and experiments that were done to better understand intelligence and personality.
This collection is housed at the Science Museum in London. The Science Museum is one of 5 museums that make up the Science Museum Group in the United Kingdom. The Museum also has things like an interactive wonder lab, a flight gallery, and a clockmaker's museum. So there's lots of fun things at the Science Museum.
So this is not the original collection that we had hoped to do. Christy, that's me. I live near the Utah State Hospital here in Provo, and had suggested doing their museum just due to their proximity and because I have a family member who was a patient there. So we're aware of some of the unusual items that they keep at their museum. However, because of the pandemic, we were unable to get enough information to feature this collection. So instead, we found the Science Museum's collection. And because of the similarities and the amount of information that they provided, we found it very easy to use and very interesting to research.
So here's the first of our 3 objects we chose. We picked objects that showcase the broad range and variety that this collection covers. So this is a bird cage from what they used to call a lunatic asylum. It's possibly from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. And this would have been given to patients in an attempt to cheer them up and to give them a little bit of color and song to fill their dull days. So something we really liked about the object descriptions in this collection um, was the link data. So I could explore more about this asylum in the related people field and use the link data to find out more about the Brighton Mental Asylum.
The second object that we chose is one that's often associated with mental hospitals, and that is this canvas straitjacket. I really liked the subject headings that they used, furnishing and equipment, and then tools and equipment. And then for the type, they narrowed it down to restraint suit. I think I would have really struggled with how to catalog a straitjacket. So I thought they used some clever wording. On this site, there's also some linked data for the materials. So you could look at anything else in the collection that's made out of canvas or made out of metal. And you can also click on the restraint suit under the type, and it would take you to the other straitjackets that are available to look at in this collection.
Okay. So this is our third and last object, and it is a phrenological head from the 1800s. And this is one of many in the collection. Phrenology is the now discredited science of mapping the head to determine either intelligence or personality. This head was made by James DeVille, who made over 5,000 casts. So with linked data, you can click on his name and discover more about him and the heads he made.
So as we mentioned before, this collection is organized by the Science Museum Group, and they follow the United Kingdom Collections Management Standard, which is called Spectrum. The group created their own subject headings, and you can find those on their site. And they follow their guidelines for that from their classification scheme, which is known as the Social History and Industrial Classification, or SHIC. And it's a really common one used in Europe. And finally, they follow the General International Standard Archival Description for their metadata schema. And we thought it was really cool to kind of be aware of some of the different international standards, because mostly what we hear about with our studies is the stuff in the United States. So this was really interesting to learn about.
So Christine and I agreed that the Science Museum is really top notch and this collection is really probably the best one that's out there. But here's some similar collections. This one's in Oregon and is called the Oregon State Hospital Museum of Mental Health. The primary source of information on their collection is a blog that's not updated very often, and they use it to highlight different artifacts in their collection. It doesn't say what cataloging system they use, but it does include information like type, creator, place of origin, and they do include photos with those. And overall, we just found that their website was hard to use and hard to navigate.
So the National Museum of Psychology in Akron, Ohio is probably the most similar collection that we were able to find. It also has an online database of their artifacts, although their collection is limited to psychology as a profession and psychology within pop culture. They also have interactive exhibits. Those are on memory, personality, and intelligence. They don't really carry a lot of controversial items, unlike the Science Museum. However, they do have materials from the Stanford prison experiment, so there is still some thought-provoking artifacts. Because this collection is in the United States, they use one of the standards we're more familiar with, and that's from the Society of American Archivists.
Here are some honorable mentions. Both of these have little to no online presence. We did, however, find evidence that the Glore Psychiatric Museum loans out items to other museums. And then we added the Utah State Hospital Museum again here for local interest because it is located in Provo, Utah.
So we've been speaking pretty highly of the science museums, and that's because we really liked it. We don't have a lot of suggestions for improvements. We especially liked the linked data and the amount of metadata that's provided by the museum group. However, we did notice it is difficult to find the specific collections. The controlled vocabulary of the search doesn't account for commonly misspelled words like straitjacket. A lot of people will spell that with a GH instead of without a GH, and they don't. So you can't find that if you spell it wrong. And sometimes we noticed there's conflicting information in the descriptions of items. So some of the places with birdcage, they're not really consistent. The hospital names will change, and it's not always clear what's going on with that. And you have to do a little, you have to dig in a little bit deeper to figure out why that is.
And here are our references. Thank you.
Thank you.